a fundamental principle in our life or just managing things in whether in our life or society is how do you prioritize your attention, your efforts, your money, your determination, even your creativity, problem solving, even your empathy, compassion towards what? Where are we applying this towards? We must know some answer there. What we want in life is inherently first functional existence in the physical world, and the second was a good experience. Now, those two answers have a lot to say about where I'm about to take the discussion. So, a functional existence in the physical world, which means, like a lot of people mention, survival, basic food security. These are the things that you want in and of themselves. So, for example, when you're hungry and you eat a lunch, and somebody asks you, why are you doing this? Then you can say, I'm going to survive so that I can live. And then why do you want to live? Then ultimately you end up with the question where you assume that we want life for itself, and that ultimately there is no purpose to life other than living the life, right? So that's how we come down to the absolute fundamental, that living the life itself is an assumption that we want it for itself. Now, you being born and living every day is not a tool for something else. And if you think that you're mistaken, if you think that you living is a tool towards going to heaven or something, or I don't know, if you have any agenda which is related to living, then it's most probably mistaken, and I not most guaranteed to be mistaken, because life is something we assume that it is something which is just written in our DNA, that yes, we are supposed to live, and then ultimately spread life and again replicate and continue life itself. So this is something that we want in and of itself. So what that says is, even whether it's education, whether it's compassion, empathy, ultimately so many things which comes down to just living. So that is one fundamental. I would be doing these online meetings with you all regularly for some time. If you wish to attend these meetings live on Zoom, save the details. If you need reminders, we also send invitations to you personally on email and Telegram app. To get reminders, do the following. The other one is which comes after it, which is once you're alive. Now that we know I'm breathing, I have something to do in this world, what is the next thing that you want in and of itself? And here we are assuming that you have basic functional existence in the physical world, which means good. Then it comes down to the higher needs, which is the experience part. Now, human experience or conscious experience, whether it's the experience for animals, whether it's the experience for us, we want to optimize that experience in and of itself. And what's the proof of that? How can I make that claim? The claim here is we can start with suffering. So I don't know how many people here are aware of this author named Yuval Noah Harari. Some of you might have heard of the author. So there's a line I'm going to quote from him. How do you know if something is real? How do you know? He says the answer is, does it suffer? Can it suffer? So suffering is as real as it gets. So if you think about this, if I take you towards very close to fire and your hand starts burning, the only goal in and of itself would be to avoid that suffering. You don't want that suffering. And that suffering could be in any other direction. It could be physical, and then it could be mental. So one of the primary needs for our experience is to first avoid avoidable miseries, avoidable suffering, and especially extreme suffering. So whether it's violence, whether it's murder, whether it's anything. So it's so basic to human experience that when you're going through suffering, everything else becomes secondary. So think about this. When people go through sickness and illness for a long period of time, all they want is one thing: when can I get out of this? So I don't remember the author of this quote. Again, the quote was, a healthy man wants 1,000 things, but an a sick man wants only one thing, which is to get healthy, right? So the idea there again is suffering for us. So reduction of suffering or elimination of suffering then becomes naturally the most important thing for optimizing experience. And then once you take care of that, once you take care of suffering, whether it's physical or mental, then you can go on to the positive sides, whether it's self-actualization, whether it's joy, elation, love, and all of those emotions. So you can think of then human experience or even animal experience on this spectrum, which is on one hand, there is extreme suffering. And then on that spectrum, if you keep going, on the other end, there is an experience where you really enjoy life, you would not want to lose life at all. This is the pinnacle of experience. And in that pinnacle, where at the height of that happiness, of course there is going to be diversity. Like for some people, they would enjoy working really hard and doing something for other people. Some people would enjoy just traveling and eating a lot of food. Then some people would say that for me, just sitting with my kids and with my family is the most important thing. And in that positive zone, of course, there are going to be a buffet of options. If I was given unlimited resources, unlimited power, what would I do with it? So my first goal would be that how do we have that physical world where people can survive? And the next would be how can we move the maximum number of people maximum towards the positive side, which is the well-being side. So suffering versus well-being, the spectrum. So this is a spectrum that I would like to move the humanity towards. Please, and this is an approach which is also called utilitarianism. In that, the greatest good is what? Maximum well-being for maximum number of people, right? So now what we know is that at least we know what the direction is. If we have to optimize society, if we have to take it forward, how are we going to do it? Now to do it, there are going to be different methods. So the idea there is that the direction is clear, then you can basically prioritize then your actions, and you can run experiments, you can observe, you can take feedback from the world. After I say it, to many people it may seem very obvious, like of course that is one of the goals. But I'll point out some examples where people make complete mistakes and disastrous mistakes and completely lose the sight of this. And this is what will bring us to the first principle, not exactly the first principle, I mean one of the most important principle and the approach, the larger philosophy that I subscribe to and I want you all to learn about this is humanism. And humanism ultimately also extends to other living beings too, but the name was coined that way, so that is the term humanism. Now, one of the key principles and a fundamental principle, which is what I want you to know today, is that ultimately well-being and desires of all sentient creatures, this supersedes all other non-sentient elements. And I'm going to explain that, of course, but I just want to repeat the principle. And if somebody wants to write this down, they can write it too. Well-being and desires of sentient creatures involves humans and other animals. It supersedes, it is above all other non-sentient elements. And what are the non-sentient elements? Fictitious entities and material things. A small example would be a company. Right? A company comes into being, they say, you know what, we're going to work hard to make this world a better place. We're going to develop new products and services. We're going to be very creative. And ultimately, this company will leave the world a better place. Now that same company gets so fanatic about their mission that they're like, you know what, now everybody has to come on Sundays also. You cannot take a break, and I can't pay you salary on time because that money has to be used for marketing. And when the employees don't give a report, they shout at them, they abuse them, because in their mind, they're doing the right thing. Because in their mind, when they're abusing, they're thinking, you know what, I'm creating discipline in the company so that they'll do something good, which will make the world a better place. Now, what did you do here? Here, you made the goals of the company more important than the goals of the individuals. And what is company? Company is a fictitious thing. Company does not exist. Again, that same question, if you have to ask what's real and what's not real, real is something that can suffer. Can a company suffer? No, it can't. You can write off a company in the books, company won't care. Who would care? People would care. But in that moment, you made the goals of company so high that you are ready to burn out your employees for it. Right? Who are real human beings, who can really suffer, who can get stressed, who can get ill because of burnout and exhaustion, right? So you lost track. Why did I create this company in the first place? And this is how you can sometimes prioritize that too, right? If you find these videos helpful, you can support me by donating something, anything. Go to www.sridharlifeschool.com/donate. Those who have been contributing, I'm truly grateful for your support. Please continue to do so. Yet another example. So, in so many Indian societies, uh, we have this culture, right? And the like, at least in the older societies, even my mom had to face that when she got married. It was a very strict rule in the house that you have to wear a sari. A suit is not allowed. Forget jeans and t-shirts. So for years, my mom had, like, of course, when in summers you don't want to wear a sari, like you want to wear a suit. Now think about this. Now wearing that outfit, sari, why did it come in the first place? Like, you thought, okay, first of all it covers the body, then you feel, okay, it looks good, it represents our culture. Now the question is, what do we need culture for? We needed culture so that ultimately we can feel good about our lives. We can see, okay, you know what, we're in this together, we're following something, right? So what was the purpose of culture? Ultimately the purpose of culture was some form of happiness, some form of internal satisfaction. Now that sari again becomes so important that now even if your daughter-in-law is crying and suffering on an everyday basis, for you the sari has become more important. For you the culture has become more important. And what did you prioritize in that case? You prioritize sari and culture because you think that culture makes for a better society. For what? For at least not for your daughter-in-law. And you prioritize again that. So this is another example. And when people get stuck in these things, they don't even realize. When you push them, why are you doing this? Oh, I thought this would make for a good family. I thought this would make for a good society. I thought this is how things are done. But then you push them for it, they'll say, oh, it makes for a good society. But good society, what does that mean? It means happy people. But you are making somebody unhappy right now. What are you doing? So this is how you lose track of what you are working towards, right? So when I said non-sentient elements in the beginning, I'll usually like to say two things there. First, material things like objects in the world. The second is fictitious things. Now, what are fictitious things? Company. A company is a fictitious thing. A country is a fictitious thing. Can a country suffer? No. Is country real? No. Country is in our minds. Country is on the maps. Country is because we have decided that these should be the boundaries. But country cannot suffer. Money is a fictitious thing. Money does not, money is simply in our minds. Ultimately, you can't eat money. You can't get satisfaction with money. Religion, again, a fictitious thing. So what I'm trying to tell you here is whether it's a country or a religion or a company or any group or a team, all of those are fictitious elements which are supposed to be a tool towards human well-being. The moment you're causing suffering to somebody else, please stop. Like the moment you're shouting at somebody else, the moment you are forcing somebody, you're trying to dominate somebody or abusing somebody or in any way just causing them suffering, that is the moment to stop and reflect. What am I prioritizing here? What is more important to me right now? Is it really more important than the other person's experience? Like, can I defend that? So this is how you start to question every behavior of yours which causes others some suffering. And then you say, and more often than not, I would say a good life for yourself and a good society comes into place where all humans can prioritize removing other people's suffering and then their own suffering over other things. So if you have that ethic as an individual, if the society has that ethic, if the country has that ethic, if the religions have that ethic, if every fictitious group also remembers that ethic, that we have to minimize the suffering of sentient beings and we have to work towards well-being, that's how the world becomes a better place gradually.
So, Sridhar, when you were giving these examples, so now when you said that the rules can't be important than the human experience. Now, if one person takes a call and does that, it's fine. But because you did that, if someone else also says, okay, now you changed this rule, now I want to change another rule. And it's not only about rules, it's like, where do you draw the boundaries?
So let me understand the question. What you mean is that if we prioritize human experience and we let go of one rule, then anybody can take away another rule and another rule, and where is the boundary? Then there are no rules. There's complete chaos, right? And how we can't take into account, we can't please every human, right? We have to have some rules. That's what you mean?
That, and also when it comes to human experience, when you are thinking about the other human, don't you think first we should think of our own safety, our own well-being, mental well-being?
No, of course. So yes, the second would be how can we prioritize other people over us, right? Like we cannot, we have to first take care of us and then go on to cooperate and help others. Yeah, so I'll address both of the questions. So the first one was how to what degree do you prioritize this? See, please remember that when we talk about rules were also there to ensure what? To ensure well-being. So rules do have a purpose. We cannot do away with all of them. But so the main question that you need to ask, if a particular rule is now causing significant suffering as opposed to benefits, that's where you question. So it's not about the boundaries, because there is no answer. Ultimately in life, at least in wisdom, no one principle can give you exact black and white, right and wrong. It will always come down to balance and the judgment. But to make the right judgment, you have to be able to ask the right questions. And what is the right question here? That is this rule that I've just made, is it causing more suffering or well-being? And so many times the rules that are old, or sometimes you don't question them, and when you go at scale they don't work enough, but you don't change the rules because, oh, this is how we do things, this is how the culture is, and now they are not helpful anymore, but you continue to do them because you just have an affinity to do them. This is what you like, this is what you have faced. So what I mean to say here is, whenever you're causing somebody suffering because of some rule or practice or culture or anything, it's important to step back and say, on the whole, is it causing more happiness, well-being, productivity versus suffering and unnecessary negative emotions and just destruction, right? And this question must be asked continuously on a regular basis with everything. Because if you lose that faculty of yours, this introspection, then you can go on and causing so much misery and pain to other people without thinking about it. And that's what happens, and that's why it needs to be talked about, right? So that was the answer to first question. And the second one was, that is definitely obvious and normal that you would prioritize your suffering. But like you also said, ultimately, it's good for us when we are good to others. So it's selfish to be altruistic. It's selfish to be compassionate. So in that sense, you will definitely take care of the needs for yourself first, for your kins, for your children, for your close relatives. That's kind of wired in us. Doesn't mean this is the most moral thing, but it's just how we are built. It's almost impossible. So like in this situation, think about this. It's a very sad state, even during the COVID times. If you try to use all your contacts to get an oxygen cylinder for your own child or your own father, we know that you're taking it away from somebody else. We know that, right? Because now they are in limited supply. We need 1,000 and we have 100. Now these 100 can be allocated somewhere. So if you help your child in that moment, of course you would. Even though you know that helping your child could lead to somebody else dying. But this is how we are. We are built. We will prioritize ourselves. And that's understandable. And if you save your child, nobody can come in and tell you, why did you do this? Why did you not focus on others? Because we understand this. When it comes down to absolute life and death or an absolute survival, we will take care of ourselves first, and then we will think about others. And that's why even morality becomes easier when there is abundance in the environment. When there is scarcity, morality becomes very, very difficult, right? So and it's our nature. So to your point, definitely there's no doubt there. But ultimately, what I'm talking about is, most of the people who are attending this, we don't really have to worry about where will I get my next meal, and will I survive tomorrow or not? Will I wake up tomorrow or not? We don't have to right now worry about those things, right? So in that sense, we are able to then think about those higher questions, that now how do I design my life? How do I live a life where I can also live in an ethical, moral manner, where it could be helpful to society and not at least cause suffering to others, right? At least not live in a manner which can directly cause pain to others. And by the way, that starts from your own home, right? Forget even strangers. We all want to live for a higher purpose. We want to know what we're here for. And one of the amazing purposes that I can leave you guys with is just to live a life where you know that your actions and your thoughts and your decisions are overall leading to maximizing well-being for the humankind and for ultimately the whole world. That is a good goal. That is an amazing goal to have, and it's exciting enough, and you can spend your whole life. You'll never achieve it, obviously, because it's an ongoing one, but it's something to strive towards, right? Maximum well-being for maximum number of people. These videos can help you to some degree, but if your problems are really serious or painful, you should come for counseling. We now have a team of psychologists who can help you and your family live a much better life. Here are some feedbacks from our clients. If you wish to take counseling from us, go to our website page www.sridharlifeschool.com/counsel. Click on this link and fill this application form. We will get back to you soon.